Super helpful. Okay, we're going to jump in. Welcome to this is my third Zoom session specifically on Notion, and the past two and this one are focused also on getting things done, or GTD. And this week's is focusing really on daily and weekly planning, like why do it, some strategies on how to get started with it, and also we're going to try a kind of a live Notion building exercise. So first time doing that, so we'll see if that's helpful. Just a few quick norms. Any questions or comments, suggestions, definitely feel free to put them in the chat. The more the merrier. And the last 15 minutes or so, we should have enough time for any questions that you have, any ideas that might pop up in relation to like what we've talked about. And hopefully we'll get some use out of this. Also, at the end of this, I'll share a couple links. One to the exercise Notion page template that we're going to use to kind of get started on thinking about what you're trying to track and what habits you're trying to build, and also the example that we do as a group, just so you can have it as a reference as you're hopefully building your own daily and weekly planning templates. So a couple things we'll get into. As we mentioned, we're going to just introduce some of the takeaways from getting things done and get into the design your planner exercise sheet on Notion, and then do a live build to kind of see what it might look like, even though I'm sure there's many different versions and iterations of how people have set up their daily planners or daily journals or weekly planners as well. And also just kind of a background on the source of this information is I've been also building a Notion template called Manifest, and that incorporates not only daily and weekly planning, but also project management and knowledge management and knowledge resource libraries. So this was kind of a culmination of doing just research on productivity and also using Notion at work and with projects that I was working on with the team, and kind of putting all of these things together to live in one minimalist productivity system. So I'll also kind of share a link to that if you're curious. And the beta version of this, if some of you are using it, is still on Gumroad, and it's free to kind of download and check out. Okay, so why daily plan and weekly plan? I tend to go back to this quote quite a bit from David Allen in Getting Things Done. So just talking about the effects of weekly reviewing as critical to combining and marrying the day-to-day activities and deciding what we're working on prioritizing with our larger goal setting that happens maybe at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of every quarter, and making sure that there's consistency between the two. We're looking at two very different scales of thought, when we think about vision and principles and purpose, which is kind of a lifelong set of questions, versus the day-to-day tasks that we're completing regularly. So the weekly planning tends to be most successful when we're setting out goals related to projects that we're working on. And the daily planning is really about seeing the highest priority tasks that are kind of making sure that we're continuing momentum with these projects. Also, very prescient in terms of tracking and planning and reflection, making sure that we don't lose focus of the larger objective, which at least personally is about creating days that are meaningful and rewarding, and making sure that our time, energy, and resources are being utilized to the things that matter. So prior to kind of doing this on my own, definitely struggled a lot with feeling unproductive or kind of being in a little bit of a haze in terms of where I'm spending my time. And then also the realities of just managing a lot of different areas. I'm a dad, I'm also a teacher, working with high school students and staff. And I also recently started doing Notion consulting for a few people. So managing all of these different things can get tricky without some of these systems in place. So um, for me, the daily, weekly, and monthly planning have been super critical to be able to manage and kind of just have an accurate snapshot of um, what is the highest priority. And relating back to the getting things done horizons, these are pretty much the five specific horizons that um, David Allen uses to organize work. So if we look at the vision as the highest altitude view of your life, including purpose and principles, all the way down to the micro level of understanding which tasks are outstanding and highest priority. So if we look at how this looks in Notion, ideally we're relating these as databases so that when you open a project, you can see a filtered view of tasks that are specific to that project and be able to sort them using filters or specific properties. So what we're going to do is try to do this live, and I quickly put together a little exercise that I'll share with everybody in a moment. But just kind of taking a look at what this might look like. And again, this is one version, but there's a lot of templates out there that specifically focus on daily planning, weekly planning. My personal favorite is probably Marie Poulin's daily planning system. And that's kind of like what got me started a while back. But in this scenario, we have the month, which we won't really look at. And then we have a week's database that's basically filtered to this week, and a day's database that's filtered to yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So, and this is all going to be in that Manifest OS template that I've been working on. So if we open up the week view, there are some specific properties here that as we're personalizing our weekly planning and daily planning will be really critical when we kind of zoom out and look at the monthly reflection and the quarterly reflection. So there's things like setting up a big goal for the week. As you reflect, you're noting any accomplishments and challenges, any kind of readings that are happening and any workouts. And then there's a few, and this is all kind of a template of a page. So every week, this kind of gets pre-populated automatically. Kind of some personal reminders. We're going to use this in our activity. And then also, if we look into some of this quarter objectives. So again, marrying the day-to-day to the larger objectives. So looking at, what are the objectives personally for the quarter? What area do they fall into? And tying projects to these larger objectives. And at the end of the week, kind of having a separate section for review. So this looks at some habits, so we can see, what's been achieved at, if we're setting up and trying to build specific habits, like personally day planning, morning pages, meditation. Need to work on that one. And then the day view. So this is looking at the example of the daily planner. Again, habits that are being tracked using a checkbox. Similar things like a quick selection tool of, how am I feeling at the end of the day? Big goal for the day, wins, challenges, and final thoughts. And each of these also, again, are set up as templates. So, if we look at everything within toggles just to pre-populate. So kind of a lot of these are, I got to wake up, brush teeth, drink water, prep my daughter's milk, things like that. And also, more importantly, if you're managing projects as well in Notion, one of the best features, in my opinion, is being able to pull in um, items or pages from these databases. For example, I'm pulling in tasks that are set for today, and also tasks that are set up to be up next. So the highest priority tasks in each project that is active. So there's a lot going on in there, but what I'd like to do today and hopefully leave you with is um, opening up with a set of questions to identify a few things. What are some reminders we can give ourselves and remind ourselves on a daily, weekly, basically putting this in every important view within Notion, which habits we're trying to build, morning and evening routines. These are actions that you tend to repeat, 90% of the time. Maybe it's like every weekday you're doing these 4 or 5 or 6 items as a way to release the mental energy that's required to think about what needs to be done, especially if they're repeating, and self-assessment. So how are you tracking on a daily and weekly basis the items? And this could be very quantitative. This could be very qualitative. You could track the number of tasks that you completed versus your goal as a percentage, or you can just track how you felt each of the days of the week. So that one is probably the most personal in terms of what you find to be most important and meaningful for tracking. So I'm going to drop this link in the chat, and if you want to follow along and duplicate this page, it's free to duplicate. Or if you just kind of want to go through the process, from my end to see how we could apply this exercise into a new daily and weekly planner. I'll give everybody like maybe a little bit in case you want to open it up and complete it together. Okay, so what we'll do is I'll populate this really briefly just to get a sense of what this might look like. And then we'll move into building out a days database and a weeks database and look at how we can combine the two to create kind of a minimal 1.0 version of a daily and weekly planner. So if we look at the first section, personal reminders, this is kind of like what are some statements that you can tell yourself? They could be affirmations, they could be motivational, to kind of set your focus and set your energy for the day. So if we say, remember to time block, take one task at a time. And review, let's say, active projects when not sure what to do next. And I think one of my personal ones is get a strong start first thing in the morning. Basically just opening up that toggle to make sure those first things get done. Habit building, this is also a very personal one. So I tend to recommend not trying to build more than 2 or 3 habits at a time. To do something new consistently every day takes a lot of mental energy, and a lot of times we tend to try to incorporate an entirely new system and end up struggling to maintain it because there's so many new aspects of that system that require new habits. So if we say, and also the more specific, the better. So if we say kind of a 5-minute meditation, and we'll say morning pages as 2 habits to try to incorporate. And these will incorporate into our database as properties, as checkboxes. So you'll be able to open up a new day and checkbox each of these, if they've been done. Morning and evening routine, these have also been super helpful in terms of really identifying the actions that repeat every day and having them open up with each new day. You kind of open up today's Notion page. You can see the 5 things that need to be done first thing in the morning. And over time, the idea is that they become automatic and require little to no mental energy to decide what we're doing next. So really maximizing our mental energy for the creative work, for the project work that is most meaningful. So we'll add a few in here. So we'll say, wake up time, go with 6 a.m. And morning actions, we could say drink water, brush teeth, maybe meal prep. Evening, let's say 10 p.m. Kind of an early riser, so. And then evening actions, say brush teeth, floss, drink water. Go with those. And then the last one, self-assessment. This is also very personal in terms of how you tend to reflect on your work. So 2, most common examples are more quantitative, where we say the percentage of tasks completed in relation to the tasks that you had set for today. Also, we can say kind of like a feeling reflection or statement. So this could be, felt pretty good at the end of the day, or felt fatigued, or felt energized, to be able to look back on. The main benefit from this is being able to look at this in a database view over the course of a week or a month and identify patterns, on the daily and weekly basis that give you insight into maybe adjusting your schedule or adjusting the workload that you have, or shuffling around which tasks and projects get the highest priority. So it's really about generating insights that can help you do the work that leads you to that objective or goal. So this just kind of is a quick walkthrough of this exercise. And if you open up that link in the chat and duplicate it, you might get, now that I think about it, you might get my answers, but you can delete them and fill it in on your own. But we're going to switch gears to move into a blank page. So some of the feedback from the past couple sessions was, this is a great example for a project management template or for setting up goals or vision, but there's still a little bit of a learning curve to Notion, especially if we're new to the platform. It's a very much a do everything software, but the downside is that it could take a little bit of time to not only get comfortable with the platform, but also identify how exactly we're trying to use it. So the open-endedness is a little bit of a double-edged sword. So we're going to set up 2 new databases, one for weeks and one for days, and look at how we could not only set them up so that they're relating to each other, and if you open up a week, you can see all the days associated with that week, but also add in specific properties to the habits that you're trying to build and to the ways in which you are reflecting and assessing your work and your days and weeks. So I'm gonna try to do that on the fly. First time doing this, so let's see how this goes. So we're going to create a new table and we're going to set it to be inline. So we have a new page and we're setting up 2 tables. So we're going to set up one for weeks. And I think we're currently in week 14 of the year. And I'm going to give it a little bit of space and set up a database for days. just populate this with a few. Okay, so we have two databases set up. They're on the same page, but they're not quite talking to each other yet. So the next step is we're just going to give these a few additional properties to get more out of these databases. So the first thing I'm going to do is give it a date for both of these, and I'm going to rename this. And for week 14, I'm just going to give it a start date of the 4th and an end date of the 10th. So now this has a set week. And there are definitely formulas out there to kind of pre-populate this for the year. This is something I added into the manifest system recently, which kind of saves a lot of manual labor. But we'll also give this a date. Make sure to rename that. And this one's 9th, 10th, and 11th. And move these over here. Cool. Slide this over so that we can save some space. Cool. Okay, so we've got new pages set up for this current week and today, tomorrow, and Sunday. The next thing we want to do is connect these two databases. So if we go to relation, I'm going to open up relation and I'm going to select days so that we can tie these two together. Cool. And if you notice, so we have a relation. Once we connect two databases, it's going to show up in both places. So if you notice, this was created automatically. So we can just set that to week 14. You can quickly kind of edit this to be all the same week so that they're connected. So now if I open up week 14, I have these connected. So these are kind of talking to each other, and eventually you can kind of do roll-ups where you can pull in data from each of these days and really kind of get some insights into each of these days and weeks. Next thing we're going to do is for the day specifically, we're going to add a few checkboxes to show for any kind of habits that we're trying to build. So if I go back to the exercise, the habits that we had were 5-minute meditation and morning pages. So we're going to set that up. Went too far. So we're going to call this one 5-minute meditation and morning pages. So quick checkboxes to track habits over time. So if we think about we're opening this first thing in the morning and at the end of the workday, we can quickly toggle, each of these on or off. The longer that you're tracking specific habits, the more insight you're getting into patterns and behavior, and being able to use this to be more strategic about your day and planning out time and energy. If we, for example, go into a calendar view, we can set this as a new view. So it's the same database, just looking at it in a different way. And you can customize what you see. So if we only want to see the habits that we're working on, you can quickly get a sense of, are you completing these habits more so at the beginning of the week and kind of falling off on Thursday, Friday, and being able to use this type of view to affect positively behavior. So that's pretty useful. And the great thing about databases, in my view, is that there's 6 different ways that you can organize. You can go with a list for the most minimal view of databases items, all the way to the calendar, which can give you a snapshot of the month. Super helpful for monthly planning as well. The next thing that we want to look at, and then we'll have some time for chatting and having any questions or comments, is creating a template, so that can save you a lot of time opening up a new day and not having to populate it with a lot of different questions and comments and things like that. So if we create a new template, we'll call this weekday, and we'll give this just kind of a quick icon. You know, it's a weekday. You'll notice that these properties are already there. So every addition to the days database will have these properties editable. And we can add in things so that as you create a new day entry, you can just kind of add template and then pre-populate it. So let's go back to kind of add these things here. And these are just checklists, very not quite connected to any databases. So adding in some quick toggles in this template page, and you'll know that it's a template with this note at the very top. And these are again meant to kind of streamline day planning and daily reflection. While we're here, I'm just going to add a few properties here that I found to be also helpful. Just called wins and challenges. So what things went well on this particular weekday and what challenges did you face? And we'll look at how that could be useful in a moment. So we set up that template page. So if we're fast forward to the 12th, I'm going to give it a date. You'll see that there's a new template button here called weekday. And clicking on that pre-populates this page with things like your morning routine, evening routine. If you have a tasks database, you can also filter it to today or this week and not have to customize each of these pages. So as we're, every new day it requires a new page. So this database kind of gets pretty big over time and could get unruly. So if you're tracking something on a daily basis, you definitely want to track it as a property and not within the page. So within the page is more of a brain dump, like quick notes that you may not have to refer back to in the future. Whereas properties are more prescient and things that you're tracking and want to reflect back on over time. So we'll also set this to this current week. And we can get rid of this tag because that came with the database. Just give this some notes. And the last thing with the days database is, as you populate this over time, tracking things like habits, but also challenges and wins. If you're reviewing these on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis, it could take maybe 10 or 15 minutes to be able to reflect instantly on the past, say, 30 entries and really get a sense of where you did the best, where we need improvement, where our energy needs to be refocused, and kind of go into the next months and quarters with those insights to be able to plan more intentionally. And same thing for weeks. So just kind of like one quick check. So just going back to the weeks database. So in the manifest example, you can see, you do your weekly reflection on Saturday or Friday afternoon, opening up, scrolling down to the review section and seeing specifically habits and really identifying kind of how you did and where you'd maybe want to spend more mental focus, saying, didn't quite do morning pages, and identify if it's a habit that you're really not invested in and, maybe getting rid of it. Or if you are invested in it and just didn't build it, you can kind of go into the following week with that focus to maybe emphasize that habit to build. Also, same thing again, if you're using a tasks database, this is a calendar view of just identifying, in this current week, what got done and what didn't. And setting up a checklist as you're closing out the week. For personally, just kind of cleaning up my computer, going through like my inbox if I'm saving links from the internet or from other sources, and moving things to their right place. In GTD, it's basically called the inbox or the capture process, where everything gets sort of out of your brain and into its specific area to be sorted later. So having a place to do that, and then also scheduling time to go back into your inbox, to your computer, and kind of clean things out as a way to not have these systems kind of unravel and become more work than they're giving you as a system. So that's a quick overview of just setting up a weeks and days database. And I'll also add a link to this little page that we put together here, but also just to get a sense of what this might look like if we're trying to build it or using the manifest system, really being able to filter to the current day, week, and month gives an opportunity to refer back to the goals that you set out in the morning or on Sunday afternoon or the first of the month, to make sure that these goals and objectives don't get lost as the weeks and months go by. So being able to filter these views to the current moment, I think, is a fantastic feature. And a way to kind of bring in the tasks and projects that are most important. So definitely want to open the floor to any questions, and they could be related to daily or weekly planning or Notion in general. Pretty much an open forum at this point. But definitely want to make sure if you have any questions, I can try to tackle those while we're together. Okay, one question was along the lines of databases. So I'm going to create a new page here. Actually, let's scroll down a little bit. So the question was, my page won't let me show two databases on the same page. This one is a common question. So if I type in \table, there's two ways to create a new table. One is inline, which means that if you've created a new page and you want to create that database inside of that page, that'll be inline. Or you could create a table that becomes its own page. So if we say months, if we create a table as its own page, this page is not really editable, meaning I can't really add any more information to this page. So I tend to, for like primary databases, I like to make them individual pages so that I know if I'm opening months, it's just that table. But for a lot of us, it may make sense to have multiple tables in the same page. So I would suggest using that table and then making sure to select inline with, creating that, and that'll show up directly inside the page. Hopefully that makes sense. Table inline here, and that'll show up inside the page. So let me know if that works and or not. So yes, Todoist. I'm still a huge fan of Todoist. I used to use it as my primary kind of task management system. I think probably the main reason for moving to Notion was just being able to write and connect research documents, create a resource library in addition to tasks and projects, and being able to relate those in different ways. I think just kind of juggling teaching, content creation, and Notion projects. I found that there was a lot of documents I was making and was using Google Docs for a lot of that. And it just felt more cohesive and holistic to do it within Notion. Notion kind of has some limitations as a text editor that are not ideal, and the minimal interface also has some limitations, but ultimately just save time and energy in terms of workflow. If I'm using tags in a review process, can I roll up and some tags? Yes. So we may not have time to take a look at that together, but if, for example, and if we're new to Notion, rollups are essentially taking properties from other pages and showing them as a sum or as a grouping. So for example, if I'm in the week view and I want to see everything completed, in the collection of days, like the 9th through the 12th, I can create a roll up here and set this up to say, I'm going to bring in information from the days database, and specifically how many times I did my meditation. So once we do that, you'd be able to open up the week view and see really without opening the days database at all, how you performed on that habit. So rollups are super powerful in terms of reducing the amount of times you have to click through databases and views, and especially if you have a week and you have 7 days and you just want to see like the habit that you're trying to build. Sarah, haven't used daily to-dos. TickTick I've used. There's a lot of, I'd also say it's really all about what you're most comfortable with. Some people like to build their entire system in Notion, and others like to have a project management system separate from their document and knowledge management system. And that's totally okay. It's really all about understanding your workflow. And the big piece of advice that I find myself giving a lot is really sketching out as much as possible on paper how it is that you work, where things are stored, what platforms do you currently use, and making sure that there's a clear understanding of how you currently work before applying an entirely new system. I think that's a challenge that a lot of new Notion users are facing with incorporating new templates, and they look amazing and they have all of this data and insights, but it also has a really steep learning curve and could be a system that is not quite applicable to how you work as an individual. So I think the evolution of Manifest was very personal in terms of implementing aspects of getting things done, of atomic habits, of the 12-week year, which is basically setting quarterly objectives, and really building a system over time that only showed the information that was valuable and that provided insight, and anything that didn't, got kind of curated out or deleted out. So I'd say, if you're using Todoist or TickTick or, other, project management, and it's working for you, then, by all means, keep going with it. Yeah, I think that's that. Other questions, comments? Sorry if I'm rambling. Great question. So is there a limit to relations between different databases? To my knowledge, there isn't. I'd say one thing to consider when relating databases is that if you add a relation to one database, it's going to create a new property in the other database. So for example, if I'm bringing in, I'll kind of relate this to, say, my content database, for example. So if I add like a connection to my content database, if I were to go back into that database, I'd see a new property for weeks. So um, it's something to consider in terms of if you're relating things and you want to avoid it kind of becoming unruly relatively quickly, which has happened to me a few times. I would think through where is it that I want to show this, and maybe for example, for the weeks database, I don't need to see this relation, so I can just hide that and only show the properties that I'm trying to use to review or to plan. Hiding properties is also hugely helpful. If I go in, I can hide this because we have the date, and I can also hide the week. It doesn't delete that property. It just kind of hides it from that view. So I'd say on the one hand, there is no limit to relations, but on the other hand, it's a strategic decision ultimately as to whether you want to roll up information like we did with this 5-minute meditation habit, or if you want to kind of bring in all of that data from the week. No problem. Other questions, comments? One thing I will do is especially if you're kind of just getting started with Notion, it's, again, personally for me, it was helpful just to open a template and play around with it and see how it worked and identify what was applicable to my personal workflow. But if you'd want to open this example up that we did together and make a duplicate of it, you can do that using the link. And also, if you want to look at the manifest system, there's a free version. I'll try to add that to I think the follow-up email on Luma. But I'd say one last thing that's been super helpful is organizing all my databases in the same place. So in this section called mindsets, making sure that databases don't get accidentally edited or deleted, and knowing that all of my major primary databases are located in this space, and also as a way to better connect long-term thinking and planning to the short term of tasks and projects. So this is also a very personal system in terms of your type of work, the cadence of projects and tasks, whether or not you want to track that at all in Notion, and whether you also want to keep personal and professional spaces separate. I'm kind of have everything, the whole bag is in here. So I think being able to juggle parenting with teaching with independent projects, it just kind of made sense to have them all in the same place as a quick overview. But and this is also kind of a free template. So I made it as like for myself and just kind of shared it with everybody, but I could share that too before we go. It's going to drop the link in really quickly. Cool. So that link will take you to the Manifest beta version. The newer superpowered version is coming on the 15th. So that's been a lot of work, mainly including video walkthroughs of each section. I've gotten a lot of questions on the beta version, and I'm hoping the videos and the walkthroughs help basically get the most out of the system and allow for users to personalize it in a way that makes sense for your workflow. And on that note, I'd kind of go back to this quote, which I go back to quite a bit in terms of a lot of the work around productivity and project management. I think we're all project managers in our own right. is ultimately about creating days that are meaningful and rewarding. So um, for me, it's not about doing more or accomplishing, completing more projects. It's about prioritizing projects, whether they're personal, professional, or hobbies or health, in a way that is not overwhelming and is manageable. So these systems, are have been, in my view, transformative in as a way to be able to manage and not kind of have that added stress. So um, with that said, I definitely want to keep in touch. And if you have any questions whatsoever, I'm accessible in this last one. I added just my some of my contact info, and YouTube channel and the Manifest newsletter. If you want to keep abreast to new events or new tutorials that are posted, and yeah, hope that was helpful. And you know, if you come across any issues, feel free to reach out.